right, hello everyone. Got a little bit of technical difficulties here today, but giving me just a minute and we will jump into our nails here. Hopefully everybody's having a wonderful day. You guys are having a great day of nails today, hopefully. And we will get started in just a minute here. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you again for your patience today. We're trying some new technology today, so I'm just getting everything situated, but I think we are ready to go. I think we are good. So I'm going to show you guys today one more nail on myself. I have already removed most of the product that I've got on there. I'm actually going to go through and remove just a little bit more and take that down to almost my natural nail. Let me readjust you guys here. All right. So I'm using our safety bit coarse and just going to go through and just feather off a little bit more of that product. And today I'm going to show you guys how to apply a tip, a full cover tip, onto a natural nail that may be a little bit too wide for the actual tip. So that's something that I've had a lot of people asking questions about. Maybe your thumbnail or, whatever nails may not quite fit. So that's what we're going to be showing you guys today. So again, I've got my product removed from my nail. I've also got my full cover almond tips that we're going to be using today. And let me find my cuticle pusher. So let's go ahead and just start by pushing back our cuticles. And that's what we're always going to start with. That's the first step of our prep. We're always going to make sure that those get pushed back and cleaned up really well. Now, I don't spend a ton of time really trying to get up into that cuticle area or making sure that everything is perfect. At this point, all I really want to do is just basically push back that eponychium and expose all of that dead protein growth that's on the nail. Once we get into our electric file, that's where we're going to remove a little bit more of that from the natural nail and clean that all up. But at this point, all we needed to do was just push back that eponychium, okay? All right, let's talk about our full cover tips. So we've got a whole bunch of different sizes in here, but sometimes those tips don't fit every nail. And I always say that full cover tips, or really tips in general, are a one size fits most. So you may not be able to fit this on every single nail. So I'm going to start sizing my nail out. And you guys, I'm going to kind of take you through this. I know exactly what size my thumbnail is going to be. And it's definitely not going to fit our largest size, but I do want you guys to see exactly how I would size this out. So if maybe I thought it was maybe a size 1, which is what I've got here, I could check that size, and I'm going to check from my C-curve first. So the C-curve, if I can turn my finger around here, the C-curve is the curve of the nail from this direction. Okay, we want to make sure that the C-curve of my nail and the C-curve of the tip are going to fit. Now, this size is, again, a size 1. This does fit nice and flush down onto my natural nail. It feels like I don't really have to press a whole lot, so that C-curve does fit nicely. But if you look, this is way too small. So it's not going from sidewall to sidewall. There's quite a bit of a gap on those edges. So I'm going to go to a larger size. And again, I do know for sure that my nails are not a size 1 like I was showing you, but I did want to just show you that just to kind of give you a little bit more information here. So on this one, so I did pick a larger size now, so this is a size 0. So this is the largest size that this style of tip comes in. So if I take a look at this one, again, it's going to fit my C-curve nicely. It's going to fit flush down there. I don't feel like I have to really press it down on there. But if I bring one edge, so one edge of that tip all the way over down into my sidewall so that it's covering all the way onto that natural nail. If I look over to the other side, there's still a little bit of a gap on that side. You can kind of see over there. So we want to make sure that that tip is covering that whole nail without any of those gaps, especially if we're going to be using what we're using today to adhere them, and that is our tip and jewel adhesive. Now, the tip and jewel adhesive is, let me grab my new jar of that. Tip and jewel adhesive is a thicker gel, and this is what we're going to be using to adhere our tips. So it's not a traditional glue, but it's not like a sculpting gel. It is a very thick gel, almost like a paste feel to it. So you can kind of see it is very thick. It is a hard, or it's not a hard gel, sorry, it's a soft gel, but it is a gel. So we do want to make sure that we're leaving a little bit more space underneath that tip when we put that on. So again, we want to make sure that the tip is going to fit all the way from sidewall to sidewall. Now you guys did see that this tip is going to be a little bit short on one side. So how do we make sure that this tip is going to fit? That's exactly what I'm going to show you today. So let's take a look at the tip first of all and clean out a little bit of that dust. So you can see that the tip has a little bit more of a wider edge or a wider area up here, and then it does taper down to that free edge into that almond shape, okay? When we're looking at our tip, now you guys, something that I didn't do just yet is trim down my natural nail because I wanted to show you what can happen if you don't trim down that natural nail. So when we put our tip on, if we take a look at this from the side, if we don't trim down that natural nail, let me make sure you guys can see this really well. Get that good in focus. So you're going to see a little bit of that natural nail underneath there is going to basically hang out from underneath the edge of that tip. So that's one of the reasons that we want to cut down this natural nail as short as possible. So as short as we can go, probably to about there. So this way, when we do put that tip on, that extra free edge isn't going to be hanging off the edge. Another reason is if we look from down the barrel, you guys can see from down the barrel, we also don't want that natural nail hanging off the end. So if we look from the side even, so look from the side view, let me see if I can get this nice and close in there for you. You can see that that natural nail is basically going to kind of bump into the well of that tip. And this is a lot of space to be adhering a tip onto, and we don't need that. So we want to make sure that our tip is sitting flush down onto this nail without having that extra overhang of the natural nail. The other thing, if you take a look at my nail, again, there's a little bit of product left over on there. So if you're wondering what's going on up here, that's why. But if you look at my natural nail, do you see how it kind of curves in a little bit on the edges? It curls a little. So it doesn't have a perfectly straight, consistent C-curve. And on those edges, if those edges curl in, when you try to put that under a tip, those edges are going to tend to want to peel away. So that's one of the reasons that I really like, actually a couple of the reasons that I really like to trim down that natural nail before we apply our full cover tips. So that's what we're going to do, is trim that down. And at this point, I could either use my toenail cutter. I usually use my toenail clipper there to trim that down. Now make sure that you're not cutting into the hyponychium. Make sure that your hyponychium isn't grown out. You can see on some of them, my hyponychium does grow out a little bit longer, but on this one, it's not. So I don't have to worry too much about that. So we're just going to shorten that up a little bit, trim off that extra. And then we can grab our 180, and I just have my 180 file buffer combo, and I can go through and I can shape that up. Now, I don't have to worry about doing a perfect shape on this, but what I do want to make sure I'm doing, again, shortening up as much as I can so that that tip doesn't, or that natural nail doesn't interfere with our tip application. But I am going to round out my edges. Let me show you this really quick. So again, when we were putting that tip on, oops, there we go. When we're putting that tip on, we don't want that natural nail to hang out from underneath there. So that's why I'm going to go through and I'm going to round out those corners. So this way, again, that natural nail isn't going to be hanging out underneath those edges. Now, I'm not coming all the way back down into, let me dust this off. I'm not coming all the way back down into that lower arch or down into that growth channel. I am just rounding out the free edge. So you're not going to be coming all the way back in here and taking down natural nail from here. You're just going to be working up through that free edge. So you don't want to be filing back down into those growth channels, because that's actually going to cause some damage down into the growth channels and into your natural nail. So make sure that you're just rounding out and tapering in those corners. So give the nail a little bit more of a round or an oval shape to it. Just taking off those corners. Now, I do like to go underneath. You can see there's a little bit of kind of that frayed nail. I'm going to turn my file over and use the buffer end and just smooth out so that I don't have any frayed edges, and I've got a nice tapered natural nail. All right, so we've got our natural nail shortened up here. Now, you guys, normally I would just go right into the rest of my prep and remove the shine, but I do want to show you some things with these tips. Now, if we are working on a nail, and again, that tip is not quite going to fit all the way from side to side, one thing you can do when you apply the tip, and I'm going to show you both of these techniques here so that you'll be able to see, is when you apply your tip, you're actually going to move that tip down. So not just applying it right at that cuticle area, because it's going to be short on those sides. If we bring that tip down, you can see it's actually going to be a little bit wider through this area right through here. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys can see that on camera or not, but again, it's going to be a little bit wider right through this section here. You see it tapers in a little bit more up here and then tapers in a little bit more down on that free edge. So we're actually going to apply our tip a little ways down, and it's actually right around that area where the rest of my product was. So we're going to go through and prep that. But if you notice, if we take a look, so when I do slide this down, that wider edge is now going to fill in all the way into those arches, or into those those lower arches or the nail group. So it's not going to be here anymore. It's now going to cover here. So this is a trick. If you have those wider nails, you're going to size out the tip, like you normally would, but you're going to apply it a little farther down so that you can actually cover all the way from side to side. Okay. Now, something else that you can do. This is another little trick. If you notice, this part of the tip is a little bit more flexible than more of the length of the tip. So if you kind of press down on that, you're going to see that does flex and it does bend a little bit more. Whereas down here on the free edge, if I press on that, I'm not going to get a whole lot of flex and kind of mobility to it, I guess. So when we're putting a tip onto a larger, wider nail, another technique you can try is if you take I just have a nipper here. You can use a nipper, you can use a toenail clipper, you can use your scissors. If you take your tip and just clip right down the center, that's actually going to give you a little bit more space. See how that little cut in there just opens up when I press that down? That's going to give me a little bit more space when I press that onto my nail. So it's almost going to open that tip up and make it easier to fit from side to side. So two different options that you can use. You can use both of them together, so you can apply the tip a little farther down and you can cut that little notch right in there so that it is going to go all the way from side to side. Okay, so it just depends on how much more space you need. If you just need that little bit of space, you can bring that tip about that far down. If you need a little bit more width to your nail, give it that little cut right down the center, and this way it is going to really help to be able to kind of press down that nail so that it fans out a little bit and will cover all the way from side to side. Okay? All right, now that we have our tip customized, so it's a whole different customizing when you're working on an extra large nail versus when you're just working on your regular other nails. So at this point, let's go ahead and prep the rest of my natural nail so that we can actually apply this. And we've already pushed back the cuticles. Now I'm going to switch to my diamond cuticle square bit. So this bit it's a diamond, and so it's a very gentle bit, but it has a flat top to it. You can see on the top, it's a flat top. So I like to use this one at about 5,000 RPMs, and I'm going to use this right up around my cuticle area. And this is what's going to help to really clean off that dead protein growth, clean up that excess cuticle. It's again very gentle, so it's not going to cut my skin, but it is going to help to remove that, like I said, that dead protein growth up around the cuticle area and down along those sidewalls. Now, with any bit you use, do you guys see the angle of my bit? I'm always keeping that bit flat on the nail. I'm never angling that bit up and using the corner. Guys, if you notice, I'm not using this little corner right here. I'm using more of the length of the bit through here, okay? If you come in and you angle your bit up, that's what's going to cut in and it's going to cause rings of fire, okay? So you want to make sure that you're always keeping that bit flat on the nail. Even on the sides here. Now, I know on the sides, it does look like I'm angling my bit up, but if you look from, I got to show you guys this from the back end here. So if you look, I'm still keeping my bit flat on the nail. I'm not using the corner. It's not cutting in with that corner. It's still keeping that bit flat onto the nail, okay? So very important, you always want to make sure that that bit is flat on the nail. You're never cutting in or causing damage to that natural nail. Now, you could go through and prep the whole surface of the nail with that diamond bit, but I actually like to use my sanding band to do my prep. And I'm going to change this one out. I'm going to grab a brand new sanding band. I always like to make sure that I'm using a new sanding band because this way you're going to get the proper grit to the grit to the bit, and you're also going to make sure that that is a clean and sanitized bit. You can't actually sanitize and disinfect the sanding bands because they will kind of break down in the water. So you always want to make sure that you're changing that out for every new client as well as for every application on yourself, just to make sure that that you have the proper grit to that bit. Now, I get people that ask me, do you need to remove the sharp edges from this bit? And you don't necessarily have to. Like you would remove the sharp edges from your hand file, you don't necessarily have to. These sanding bands do come pre-beveled, so you can see that it's not going to cut my skin, it's not going to damage it. But if you do feel like you need to remove that extra edge on there, you can just tap that bit onto a regular file. Just do a couple of times, 1, 2, 3, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, just enough to soften up that edge. So if your cuticles may be a little bit more delicate or anything like that, you can take off that sharp edge. But I'm just going to go through my cuticle area one more time, and then I'm going to feather my bit all the way through that natural nail, just enough to remove the shine. And again, you guys, I do have a little bit of product left on here that I'm going to try to remove a little bit more of that, or just kind of blend that in to the natural nail so that I don't have edges or any lifted product or separation or anything. But most of the time, if you don't have product, it's just a really quick and easy feathering that bit over that nail to lightly remove the shine, give that nail a little bit of texture, and break up any surface oils that might still be on the nail. All right, I think we are good there. Making sure my edges are good. I think I have a little bit more cuticle right down on that edge there that I am going to switch back to that diamond cuticle square bit, just to make sure that I get right down in there and I don't have any lifting issues. If you leave any of that excess cuticle around the edges, that tends to be where you can get some issues with lifting. So you want to make sure that you are cleaning that up. Now, you guys, one little trick that I am doing here, I've got a little bit of dry skin right along the edge here, so I am just using my diamond bit to kind of clean that up just a little bit. So you can use the diamond bits on your skin like this to smooth those out, slough off any of that maybe callus or anything like that, and just gently work around that cuticle. Because again, you guys, these bits they're fairly gentle, so you're not going to damage. All right, we've got our nail prepped. I'm going to dust off that dust, get all of that dust off of there, clean that off, turn that around a little bit so you guys can see what's going on. And then we're going to cleanse the nail. And I'm going to grab my Swipe. So Swipe is our cleanser. And it's a combination of alcohol and acetone, and it's a really balanced combination. So it's not going to over dry your nail, but it's also going to cleanse the nail. Okay, so a lot of times people say, well, if it's alcohol and acetone, can't I just mix my own? And you guys, I do not recommend that because, like I said, it is a balanced combination of both so that you're not going to over dry the nail, but it is going to cleanse and remove any germs, any bacteria, and things like that from the nail. Okay. Now on my actually, you guys, on my other fingers here, I usually just go through and give those a quick swipe like this. On my thumb, it's a little bit trickier. I always feel like I need to turn that around because I want to brush that in the direction that the nail grows. So I don't want to be brushing across. When you brush across, that does tend to just push the dust down into the sides. So I always make sure that I'm brushing in the direction that the nail grows. But from this angle, I feel like I sometimes bump into my knuckle with that brush, and I don't feel like I get that really good smooth brush. So I will just kind of come up and around like that, just pushing that cuticle area back a little bit as well. So just another little trick when you're working on yourself, because working on yourself, it can be challenging, especially on this thumb because it's that odd angle. You're not able to really look at it from this direction. I mean, I can turn my hand around and it's a little bit awkward, but you just kind of learn to work with your own hand, the best angles you're able to. All right, I am going to grab our tip. So this is the one that we're going to use. Again, this is the one that we did cut that little notch right down the center. And let's go ahead and grab our protein bond. So protein bond is our bonder. Let me come in a little bit. You can see it says non-acid adhesion. So this is not a traditional primer. This is a bonder and it works more like a double-sided tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply 2 coats of this to the nail. And I start at the center, work out to the sides, and then I come back a little bit closer to that cuticle area. The reason that I do like this is a couple of things. So first of all, let me show you. When I pick up my protein bond, I will tap out some of that excess because I don't want to flood it into that cuticle. And that's the reason that I also start right in the center and work down towards the free edge, out to the sides, and then back towards that cuticle area. So this way I'm not flooding that product right at that cuticle. Even though it is a non-acid bonder, it still is a chemical. And whatever chemicals you're using, no matter what, you always want to make sure that you're avoiding contact with the skin, okay? Avoid those irritations, those allergies, those contact dermatitis. Make sure that you're not coming in contact with your product to the skin, okay? Now, before we actually adhere our tip, I used to show you guys that you needed to etch the surface of the well to make sure that your gel was going to adhere. Okay? Gel does not like to stick to a shiny surface, so that's why we always tell you to remove the shine from the well. Now, we have found that if you apply a coat of protein bond into the well, you really don't have to do that step of etching the surface. Now, protein bond is a non-acid primer or a non-acid bonder, so it's not actually going to etch the surface of the well, but it is going to really allow that tip and jewel adhesive to adhere to the tip. So again, you're not going to have to worry about etching the surface or removing the shine from the surface. Just apply one quick easy coat of protein bond. Okay. All right. Let's grab our tip and jewel adhesive. And you guys, I'm actually going to set that tip right up top here. I want to set that in a spot where I know it's not going to get any dust or lint or anything on that. So just as I'm working here, taking off that little cap there. All right, so I'm going to grab this is our, let me come back out here. So this is our dual-ended brush and spatula. So on one end, it's got the spatula. On the other end, it's got a brush. So you can use either end however you need to, but this is what I like to use when I'm applying my tip and jewel adhesive to the well of the tip. Okay, I don't actually need to, oops, hang on a second, you guys, sorry there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop up a little bit of that gel and apply that to the well of the tip. Okay, now I do see a lot of people, they will take their tip and they'll actually scoop down in there to pick up the gel. And that's okay. That's a great technique. If that works for you, absolutely go for it. For me, I feel like I have a little bit more control when I use the spatula. So let's come in here. So I like to just go in, scoop up a little bit of that tip and jewel adhesive. I'll kind of tap off those edges, get rid of those little strings. Now, before I use this, I'm going to just set that, I'm going to set this right to the side here. I'm going to check my nail and I want to see exactly where I need to position this because, again, I've got that little notch cut in there and I'm going to apply this a little ways down the nail. So I'm going to check and see how far down the well do I need to apply my tip and jewel adhesive. Because if I'm only applying to here, I don't need my tip and jewel adhesive all the way down to here. So just kind of eyeball it to see where you're going to be applying that, that product. So I'm going to go just a little farther down than the end of that little cut that I put in there. So just kind of keeping that in mind as I apply my product. So again, we've got our tip and jewel adhesive. I think I maybe need just a tiny little bit more there. So I'm still going to start right in the center of that tip. I'm going to set down my product, bring that all the way back towards the cuticle area, and then use that spatula to just bring that all the way out towards the edges. Now I do leave just a tiny little space right around that edge. I don't bring it all the way to the edge, just to make sure that when I apply my tip, it doesn't squeeze out those sides. So just leave just a tiny little hairline space. I think I'm going to grab just a little bit more of that adhesive, just enough to bring that all the way, almost all the way to the edge. All right, so at this point, I've got a little bit of that adhesive kind of poking off the top. This is where I like to use my brush to just clean that off of the edge so I don't have any product coming out, basically out the end, okay? All right, now we're gonna start, and if we take a look at this from the side, I'm gonna start at about a 45-degree angle. I'm gonna set that nail down and just slide it back a little bit. Now, I'm not gonna slide it all the way back to the cuticle because, again, we're gonna be applying this a little farther down on a wider nail. But I still like to set it down and slide it back so that way I don't have any of that gel squeezing out the end. If I were to just set it straight down, a lot of times you end up getting a little bit of that gel squeezing out. Now, we do have that little notch that we cut in there, so we are probably going to have a little gel squeezing out, but just kind of helps to avoid it. And also by starting at a downward angle at this point, that's going to help to spread that tip out just a little bit where we cut it. Okay, so again, we're going to start, and let me turn this around so that we can actually see what we're doing here. So again, I'm going to set that down, slide it back just a little bit, and I'm going to use some pressure all the way down. As I'm pressing down, you're going to see that gel just connecting with that natural nail, pressing that all the way to the edges. I'm going to just slide that back just a little bit more. Now at this point, you guys, you can see that tip's not really going anywhere, which is great. I don't want it to move. I don't want it to slide because I want to be able to look at this nail and adjust. Make sure that anything that I need to adjust and straighten out or anything is going to be where I'm going to put that tip where I need it. And this way, you guys can start to see that that tip is going to come right to that lower arch where we want it. Now, I have a little bit of a notch right through here. I've got a little bit of a wider area of my tip there. So I'm just going to slide that back until, and you guys, it's very minimal, but just until that edge is now coming straight out with that natural nail, okay? And we're going to check the other side here, make sure. And this is where having that little notch right through the center is going to come into play because it's going to help to spread out that tip a little bit wider so that you can get that all the way to the edge. Okay, now you guys, I'm going to show you something here. Let me come back out. I do have my little touch cure light here, and this is what I'm going to use to freeze the product into place. So notice that when I turn that on, the light comes on down here. I am going to lift that up because I don't want to put my nail directly under the light right here. What's going to happen if I put my nail right up under here, that's going to start to create a lot of heat when the product is curing. So I want to actually keep my finger a little farther away. Now, one thing I do want to do before, whoops, come on, turn off. There we go. Before I actually go under the light, let me come back in here. You can see there is a little bit of that gel squeezing out the center. It's not a big deal, but if you want to go through with your brush, you can clean that off and remove that so you don't have as much filing to do. Or you can even brush it up around the edge of that tip and just to kind of seal that edge if you need to or anything like that. But you can go through and remove that if you need to, okay? And I'm going to check my edges here. I'm going to actually hold my edges down just to make sure everything is adhering. And you guys, this is the great part about having this touch cure light is I can just tap the end of it. I can hold the edges there, making sure everything is where I want it, making sure that's all the way over there. And then I'll slide that right underneath the light to freeze that into place. Okay, I'm going to hold this here for, I would say probably about at least 15 to 20 seconds. And after a couple of seconds, I can let go and move that just a little farther away from the light, just to make sure again that I don't have any extra heat happening on my nail. Okay, but again, just I would say maybe 15 to 20 seconds or so, and you're good to go with that. Now, if you're working on a full set, you're going to freeze each nail individually, just like we did here. You're going to go on to your next nail, apply your tip, freeze that into place, apply your tip, freeze that into place, apply your tip, freeze into place, apply your tip, freeze into place. After you have everything set into place, then you're going to go into your, oops, I don't have my light turned on here. Actually, you guys, I have to use my other side. I forgot to plug this in overnight, and so this one over here I know is charged up and ready to go. So I'm going to turn my light on for 60 seconds, and we are going to fully cure our nail. Sorry guys, I'm trying to see my light over here. Okay, so we're going to fully cure this for a full 60 seconds, and then we can customize it. So I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but my nail on this side, this one actually does fit the size 0 just fine. So this one I didn't have to do the technique of sliding it down and applying it a little bit differently. So on this one, you're going to notice that it's going to look a little bit longer than what this one does. So we're going to have to customize this. We're going to shorten it up a little bit. So this way, everything is going to be nice and even. Okay, so let's go ahead and all right, to do our customizing, you can either trim it down shorter, you can use either a tip cutter. So if you need to shorten that up quite a bit, you can use a tip cutter. You can use our toenail clipper just like we used earlier. Otherwise, you can actually use your electric file. So really whatever's comfortable for you, that's what you're going to use to shorten it. So again, if we take a look, let's come in nice and close here. If we take a look here, you can definitely see that this one is way shorter than this one. So let's go ahead and shorten it up a little bit. I'm just trying to eyeball it and see how much length we need to take off. And I think I'm just going to use my toenail clipper. And I like to use the rounded edge on this because this way I can still keep that same oval shape. So for this technique, I don't like to use a toenail clipper that is a flat edge. So you can kind of see the difference. So this one's got that flat edge, this one has the rounded edge. If you're trimming those almond shaped nails, use that almond or that rounded toenail clipper, and that's going to help to keep that, that almond shape. Okay, so it looks like maybe just a little bit shorter. And I always take a little bit at a time. You would rather take a little bit more instead of shortening it up too much and then having to maybe shorten up your other hand or something like that. So I'm going to turn this around, check my length here. And when I'm shortening and checking my length, I'm actually looking from the cuticle to the free edge. So same thing on this one, cuticle to free edge. So I line up my cuticles so that they're nice and even. And then it still looks like my left hand here is a little bit longer. So let me just take that a little bit shorter. And I think this might be good. All right, so again, just trimming that. Like I said, if you want to use your electric file, you can use that. Okay, so this looks right for length, but now let's customize this a little bit into our shape. And I'm going to grab my 150 hand file. I'm going to just kind of take in those edges a little bit if I need to, making sure that there wasn't any of that gel that squeezed out. I think we're good. But now you guys, look at how right up to that edge this tip is, okay? Same thing on this one, right up to that edge. This one may have gotten just a hair shy on that side, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. But we're going to go through, shape this up so that this nail is going to be the same shape as our other thumb here. So we're just going to taper in those sides a little bit, bring that a little bit more to a point, and you can trim this a little bit more perfectly, you know, with your toenail clippers if you can. But if you just need to file, that's okay too. All right, I think we are almost good with our shaping. Checking that. That looks, guys, now it looks still just a little bit on the long side. I'm gonna just take that down just a hair more. And you guys measure as you're working, as you're filing. So this way you feel like, well, okay, so now I think we're good. But yeah, measure while you're working so that way if you do need to take a little bit more, you don't completely file and perfect that nail and then realize, oh, maybe I need to take a little bit more, okay? So just go through, taking off a little bit as we go. You guys, I'm trying to turn my nail around here and work from a view that you guys are going to be able to see here. But all right, so we've got our shaping in there. Got a little bit of that frayed free edge. I'm just going to grab my buffer, run that right underneath there just to get those little frayed edges. Now, let me grab my brush here. I'm going to dust this off. Now, you can see that we've got a little bit of a ledge here and we've got some space in the back, okay? Now, on this one, my full cover tip went all the way back to my cuticle, so I didn't have to worry about anything in the back here. But because we use these different techniques to apply this tip, we've got this little bit of extra space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take down a little bit of that, little bit of the bulk of the tip, and I'm going to use, and you can use really whatever bits you like. I'm going to start by using my safety bit Coarse. Okay, I'm going to turn my speed on my electric file to, I would say about 7 to probably 7, I'm going to say about 7,000 to 8,000 RPMs. And I'm going to use this just right up on the tip. I'm not coming in contact with my natural nail at all, but just enough to bevel down that back edge. And if there was any of that gel that squeezed out in between that little slice that we took out of there, you can use the E-file to take that down. This is almost like how you would blend if you were just doing a quarter well tip. So just enough to taper that down, take down that ledge, take down any extra bulk of that tip and jewel adhesive. And then I'm going to switch back to that sanding band again. Okay, and with the sanding band, I'm going to turn my speed back down to about 5,000 RPMs. And then we're actually, turn that up just a little bit there. Okay, so about 5,000 RPMs, just enough to blend out that seam a little bit better. And still, I'm just staying on that tip. I'm not trying to work back onto that natural nail at all. So just right around that edge. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to remove the shine from the whole rest of that tip, because we're going to use our fiber gel to fill in the back here, and then we're going to bring that all the way through the end of our tip. And this way, by removing the shine, our product is going to adhere really well. Like we were talking about earlier, gel does not like to stick to a shiny surface, so we want to make sure that we are completely removing the shine from that whole entire length of the tip. And I think we are looking good. I got a little bit of that tip hanging off the edge there, just that little frayed edge. I want to make sure I catch that. All right, so we're looking good. I'm going to dust the nail off, get all of that dust off there. Even from underneath, make sure you clean that all the way off. Now at this point, okay, we are going to be applying more product in the back here. Now we did go through and we prepped that. We applied our protein bond and all that good stuff. But because we've been maybe touching this or with all of the dust on there, I am going to go back through with a little bit more of my swipe because I do want to re-cleanse this nail. So I'm going to take a little bit of that swipe on a lint-free wipe this time. I'm just going to fold over my lint-free wipe and I'm going to cleanse just that natural nail area. I'm not going to use my swipe all the way over that whole entire extension because this is a little bit, this is a plastic tip and swipe has a little bit of acetone to it. I don't want to be getting that acetone onto the tip because it can start to break down that tip and it can also remove or smooth out that, that texture that we just put in. Okay, so we want to make sure that we keep that texture on there, but we do clean off that cuticle area or any of that natural nail that is showing. Okay, all right, we're going to go back in with one more coat of the protein bond, and we really only need to put it on the natural nail for sure, but I do like to go over the rest of that of the tip just to make sure that I've got really good adhesion. So I'm going to start again a little ways away from that cuticle area and then work all the way down through the rest of that tip. All right, we are ready to fill this in. And to fill this in, I'm going to be using our Manicure Fiber Gel. So Fiber Gel is a soft gel. So everything that I used so far, the tip and jewel adhesive, that's also a soft gel. So all of this can be soaked off if you choose to soak off. But the fiber gel has microfibers in it. And you guys, let me see if I can grab my clear. I want to show you guys what the fibers actually look like. And you can see them a little bit better in the clear fiber gel. So if I come in nice and close here, let's see, I'm trying to get, there you go. You can actually see, well, maybe you can't see very well on camera. There you go. Now you can really kind of see how it looks almost cloudy. That's not cloudy because there's contaminants in the product or anything like that, but there is just those tiny little microfibers in there, okay? And those microfibers really form almost a woven mesh within the gel. So this is going to sit on top of the nail and it's going to really give that nail a lot more durability and more flexibility. So it is a great product to apply over your full cover tips if you need a little bit more strength to them. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my gel brush. I'm going to grab my little, this is just an art palette. I like to have that on hand to keep my brush clean or to wipe out any extra gel onto there. It's just going to help keep everything a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to take a little scoop of that fiber gel. I'm going to tap that off and let me come in nice and close. Turn this around so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to grab just a little bit more of that gel, I think. And I'm going to start with that right up by my cuticle area. And it's almost like you're doing a fill on this nail. So you're just kind of putting a little bit of pressure on that product, dabbing that onto that cuticle area, filling in that empty space. And then I'm just going to blend that out onto the nail. Now I'm just blending the edge of it. I'm not pulling all the way from the back. I'm not just brushing on. By blending from the edge of it, now you can see that it's going to have a little bit more of a smooth transition. Now, if you need to, something that I like to do from time to time is I'll grab my liner brush, and I can use the liner brush if I need to get up a little bit closer into my cuticle areas or pull that product down along the side, just kind of filling in space. So it's a little bit easier to get into some of those tighter areas with that liner brush than it might be to do with your full-size gel brush, okay? Now, I do like to let this just kind of level out for a second, just to self-level a little bit. And then I will put this back into our light. Now, let me come back out there. So this one's going to go back into the light. We're going to freeze this into place, I would say for about probably 30 seconds or so, just to freeze that into place, set that product, and then if I need to, I can add more product over the top of this to give it another layer. Okay, so we're just gonna let that cure out, and then we'll go back in with another coat of our fiber gel. So with our second coat, same thing, I'm just gonna scoop up a little bit more. Now with this one, I think that's been about 30 seconds. This one I am going to brush this all the way from cuticle to free edge. So with this second coat, this is really going to help to blend everything together. And it's also going to give that nail a little bit more thickness down onto the free edge of my tip. Because tips are, you guys, tips are not 100% as solid as, you know, say an acrylic or a hard gel. So these you do want to make sure that you are adding a little bit of something over the top for a little bit more durability, okay? Now this time I am going to go back into the light. Let me check my timer here. Okay, so this one I am going to go back into the light for a full 60 seconds and cure this one all the way through. Now, at this point, you may or may not have to cure this all the way through. If you're going to go right into maybe a gel polish application, you could just cure this and freeze that for 30 seconds and then go into your gel polish, because this will continue to cure as you do your coats of gel polish. But I want to show you guys how you can really customize this nail. If maybe you didn't get your fiber gel application perfectly smooth, you can go through and you can file it to smooth it out. And if that's what you need to do, then you do want to make sure that it is 100% cured all the way through before you file on it. So that's why we're going to cure this for the full 60 seconds. When it does come out of the light, it is going to have a tacky finish to it. Now we do need to wipe off the tacky finish. And before, when we were cleansing our nails, we were using Swipe. Swipe does have acetone to it. So like I was telling you guys before, we want to make sure now that we're using a cleanser that does not have any acetone to it, so that we don't start to break down that surface. Okay, so that's where our Manicure cleanser comes in. So Manicure cleanser is an alcohol-based cleanser. It does not have any of that acetone to it. So we're going to use this to cleanse off that tacky finish. Now you guys, I want you to notice that when I wipe, I put that wipe on the whole nail, and then I basically pull away from my cuticle area. And then I'll fold that wipe in half, and I'll give that another swipe over the top. What that's going to do, that's going to keep me from pushing that tacky uncured gel back onto the skin or the cuticle area. Again, it is a chemical, it is uncured gel, and we want to avoid getting that on the skin. So just that quick and easy pull forward to wipe. Okay, now at this point, we can check our shaping if we need to, clean up around the edges, make sure everything is nice and smooth. And again, you guys, if you don't need to do any filing and finishing, you can just skip this step. Don't wipe off that tacky surface, and you would go right into your gel polish. Okay, but I'm going to go through and just smooth this out a little bit. And you could use your 150 grit file. I'm going to just really quickly use my electric file, and I'm going to use that sanding band, same one that we were using before. And still at about 5, actually I'm turning this up to about 6,000 RPMs, just to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. And I like to use this right up around that cuticle area. Come a little closer. So this way I can get right up into that cuticle area, make sure everything is smooth around those edges, and then again, just feathering through. Oh, sorry guys, there you go. Just feathering through, making sure that I don't have any high spots or low spots, no lumps or bumps or anything like that. Oops, there you go. Sorry. Trying to stay in camera here. You guys, it's always challenging to work on your own nails. And like I always talk about, working on your own nails, trying to keep the proper angles and the proper positioning. Sometimes when you work on your own, you really just have to look at them from all kinds of different angles and work from different angles. So again, just smoothing that out. If I feel like I need to, I can come back around with my hand file just to really make sure everything is smooth. Now you don't want to be doing a ton of filing on this, because we don't want to file off all of that fiber gel that we just applied, but just enough to go through and make sure everything is nice and smooth. And notice that I do look from a lot of different angles as I'm filing, just to make sure that everything looks right from all different angles. And I think we're good. So let's go ahead and apply our gel polish. So before I do that, I always go through, dust off that nail, again, clean out underneath, make sure all of that dust is cleaned off. And then, again, we're gonna cleanse this. So this time we're still gonna go back to our manicure cleanse, or a manicure cleanser. This is, again, going to clean off that surface, but it's not going to smooth out that texture that we just put in, because we have to have that texture in order to allow our top or our gel polish to adhere. Now, something else, you guys, I didn't quite mention this. There's a little edge there, but if you do have any of that tip and jewel adhesive that squeezes out underneath, you can use that manicure cleanser to clean that, just to make sure that there's no more tacky surface to that. And I've got one little edge right down here that I want to make sure I am cleaning up. Okay, all good there. Okay, so we are going to apply one more coat of our protein bond. This is, again, going to give that, that tip a nice texture, a nice tacky surface to it. Get that right up on there. Same thing as we were doing before, start a little ways away from the cuticle and work up to it so that you're not coming in contact with that skin, but getting a good coat of protein bond over the whole surface. All right, let's come in with our color, and the color that I've been using on the rest of my set here, this is Magenta 101 from our Manicure Color, and this is our gel polish. So we're going to start, and I usually start about halfway down the nail, kind of like we were doing with our protein bond, work out to the sides, and then I cap my free edge. I like the look a little bit better to seal that free edge. Do you have to do that? Nope, it's totally a preference thing, but I like to make sure that I've got color all the way around the edge. And then we'll work back towards our cuticle area. And you guys, again, working on yourself, polishing your own nails is always challenging. So if you need to take a little bit more time, maybe than you normally would, slow it down, that's okay. And again, work from different angles if you need to. So I'm gonna turn my finger around here. I'm gonna press my brush down, and I'm just gonna get that brush to fan out a little bit, and then I'll bring that up towards my cuticle area and pull down. And just kind of working all the way up around that cuticle, all the way up into those corners and pull down. Now, just like I showed you the trick using our liner brush, with the fiber gel, you can do that same thing with your color. So if I take a little bit of that color onto my tile here, take a little bit onto my liner brush, I can use that liner brush now to get that right up into that cuticle area, so that I get nice and close up into that cuticle area without touching my cuticle. So just getting a really nice finish around that edge, okay? Now, back into our light, we're gonna go back into the light for another 30 seconds or so, freeze that layer into place. We'll go ahead and do a second layer, and that way we're gonna have really good full coverage. Now, guys, I lost my chat here. I'm not able to see the chat. I'm not sure. Oh, all right, there we go. There's my chat. Okay, you guys, I want to know, do you guys want to see some line work today, or do you want me to just finish with a solid color today? So let me know in the chat. Do you want line work? Just tell me yes or no. Line work, yes or no. I think I might know your answer, but I like to give you guys the chance to vote. So while I'm doing my second coat of color, you guys go ahead and let me know what you think. Do we want to do some line art? Do we want to do a design on here? Yes, yes. Okay, I see you guys' yeses in there. Like I said, I figured you guys would want a little bit of extra design here, but I always just like to check, just make sure. Maybe sometimes you just want that solid color. But you guys, I always like to mix up my designs. So whatever I'm doing, you know, on one hand may not always match the other hand. So I like to change things up, add different designs, add different colors. And for today's design, I actually want to work over a matte finish. So I'm going to use our matte I always have a hard time saying this, matte non-tack top coat. So this top coat it's still a soft gel. It is a tack-free top coat, but it is a matte. So when you're using the matte, I feel like the design that I'm going to do is it's going to come out a little bit smoother and a little bit crisper. But if you prefer to work over the tacky surface of a top coat, you can definitely do that as well. So I'm just going to go through, apply one coat of our tack-free matte top coat, again all the way back up to our cuticle area, and then we will cure this. Now again, this coat is going to cure for the full 60 seconds because I want to be working over a completely cured out top coat. So I want to make sure that I'm working on that really good really good matte finish. Okay. Now, color that I'm going to use is from our Mission Control gel paint collection. So I'm going to be using Sonic. Now, Mission Control is a hard gel. So everything else that we've been using today is a soft gel. So that Tip and Jewel adhesive is a soft gel. Our Manicure fiber gel is a soft gel. The matte tack-free top coat's a soft gel. So all of these soft gels, you would think that maybe you can't use a hard gel with it. This one we're only going to be using for color and design. So I'm not using this really as a full coverage. If you build up a little bit more strength over the full cover tips, you could use this as a solid color. But because we don't have a whole lot of other strength under this, I wouldn't be using this as a full coverage color. Okay. Sometimes when you use hard gel over a soft gel, the soft gel may end up too flexible, and that hard gel can crack over the top. So full coverage on today's nail I probably wouldn't do, but for our design we can definitely do. Now I am going to grab again that spatula here. Whoops, you guys take a look at that. Do you see how the nail is actually still shiny? That is probably because I didn't quite have my nail directly under the light. So I am actually going to close up my gels. I need to turn my light a little bit so that I have my nail completely underneath the light. So you guys, you can see I turned my light here because I think my nail was kind of right about here when I was curing it. So you can see it's not going to fully cure. So I'm going to make sure that my hand is completely in the light there, making sure that that is going to cure all the way through. And with the matte top coat, you can definitely see if it's not cured, because once it's cured, it will look completely matte. So make sure that you are fully curing everything. Okay. Now, in the meantime, I'm just going to clean off my tile here. You can use polish remover, acetone, swipe, manicure cleanser, whatever you need to cleanse off that surface. And then I do want to make sure this is nice and dry. So I'll give it just another wipe with a clean, dry wipe here. And so the color that I'm using is called Sonic. And again, this is our Mission Control gel paint. Now I do want to make sure that I have this really well mixed up. Now I did mix this before we started today, but I just want to show you. All right, there you guys. Now you can see that my nail is fully cured out. There's no shine left to it. Okay. All right, I am gonna clean off my spatula. Come back out here. So clean off my spatula, make sure that is nice and clean. And then I'm gonna just give this a quick stir. So sometimes you may notice that the color pigments can settle a little bit. So always just give it a little stir, make sure that everything is combined really well so that you're not gonna get a streaky look or anything like that. All right, so today's design, we're gonna do some flames because I don't know why, but flames have been, I mean, you guys, I know why. They look really cool, but flames have been kind of a trend for a long time now. And I've really been having some fun with the flames these days. So that's what we're gonna show you today. So I'm gonna come in nice and close, and I'm actually gonna take a little bit of that gel paint and I'm gonna set that right down onto my tile. I like to work off of the tile sometimes rather than from the jar. It's a personal preference. You can do however you want to do. But I'm going to use my micro detailer for this design. So my micro detailer is our teeny tiny little brush, and I love using this because I can get really good detail. Now, you guys, I'm going to be honest, I've had a little bit of coffee today, so I'm a little bit shaky today. But when you are doing line work, whether you have coffee and you're a little shaky or not, make sure that you're using your fingers to balance, okay? You don't want to just try to go in and freehand it, I guess. You want to make sure that you're not just going in like this. You want to make sure that you are connecting somewhere to balance your working hand so that you have a lot more stability and a lot more control when you are moving that brush, okay? So for our, let me readjust my camera here really quick so I can get a better angle for you guys. All right, so when we're doing our flames, I'm actually going to do 3. So we're going to do a center flame, and then we're going to do 2 smaller ones on the sides. So I'm going to take my brush, again, this is the micro detailer. I'm going to roll my brush through the paint, and that's going to load up the brush, okay? Now, you're going to notice that I just kind of drag through, and I'm actually swirling or kind of turning the brush as I pull that brush through. Again, this is going to load up the brush. And then you're going to basically just kind of touch the surface to pick up a little bit of that gel paint. Now I'm going to take a little bit more because for our design, I actually want, you can see there's a little bit of just a little pearl. We'll call it a little pearl right on the end of the brush. Now I'm going to start and keep your brush a little bit more straight up and down. You don't want to be working with your brush flat. Now at times I will start to angle that brush, but for now you're going to keep that a little bit more straight up and down. So again, I'm going to pick up a little dab. We're going to start right in the center. So basically pick your center point, touch that pearl down, and this is where you can apply a little bit of pressure. We're going to pull up and just give it a little bit of a swirl. Okay, same thing, pick up a little bit more. Now, on myself, sometimes I will turn my nail around because on my right side, I can usually get the proper brush position, but sometimes I need to turn my nail around. So now I can still be working on my right side and get that proper brush position, okay? So just basically pulling 2 lines and give it a little swirl. And then we'll pick up a little bit more of that paint, and I'm basically going to fill in space. So I'm going to just bring that right up to the corners here, filling in space, and basically making that lower part of my flame a little bit thicker. And then you can also bring that paint right up to the point there. Okay, pick up a little bit more. So basically kind of making a little horseshoe. I guess we should have done this for a lucky horseshoe for St. Patty's Day, but that's okay. So again, just bringing that right out there. Okay? And I do kind of go back and forth, turn that around, check from all different angles. I'm going to just create a little bit more thickness right up there. And I think I like that, how that looks. Okay? I'm going to take a little bit more of that paint, and we're basically going to make a stem now. So I'm going to start and just curve this line in. So start from here, curve down. Same thing, pick up a little more paint, start here, curve down, curve down. And then you can just fill in that little center. Okay, same thing, curve down. Now this is where I do use a little bit more pressure as I'm pulling down to get a little bit more of a thicker line, okay? At this point, don't worry about anything that's happening down here. We're going to go back and we're going to create our second and our third little flame. So same thing, roll your brush through that paint, load it up, take a little dab, pick your center point, and I'm going to lower this one down just a little bit. We're not going to make them all the same level, so I'm going to start down here, touch down, press, drag your brush up, and give it a little bit of kind of just a little S shape, a little S curve there. Okay, again, pull up. Now, same thing, I'm going to turn my nail around, pick up a little bit more, touch that down. Now, you guys, now you can see I'm starting to get a little shaky. Stop what you're doing. If you get shaky, stop what you're doing, relax your hand, just kind of loosen up your hand, let it maybe fall for a second, and then go back to that design. Sometimes you just tend to grip that brush a little too much. And that's where I tend to get shaky, is if I grip too much, Okay, so same thing. Pull that second line, and now we're just going to fill in that center area. Bring that right up the edge. Same thing over here, right up the edge. And I think we're good there. Again, I'm going to turn my nail back around, take a little bit more of that gel, and just pull and kind of round. Same thing, pull and round. So now you can see that these two stems are going to start to connect in the center. So that's where we're going to come in with a little bit more of that gel paint, and again, round in. So just like we were rounding in up top in our flame here, we're going to round in down here. So again, and sometimes I like to work side to side. So this way I can get that really nice rounded edge. Sometimes if I try to go all the way around in one stroke all the way through, I don't get as even of placement. So all the way through or side to side, just depends on how you like to work. Okay, same thing, we're going to take a little bit more, just kind of round out this edge here. And again, anything down here, don't worry about, we're going to get to that as well. We'll do our third little flame over here. And again, you can start from this view, you can start from this view, whichever way you want to start. But again, pick your center point, touch your brush down, round that, and then do your little S curve. A little bit more of your gel paint, touch down in the center, round that, and make your S curve. Okay? Fill in, so get a little bit more of that paint. We're going to make this a little bit thicker right in the center, all the way up around the other side, and just thickening up that edge a little bit. All right, I'm going to turn that back around. Same thing, we're going to touch the center, round that down, just creating our stem. Now this edge, I'm just going to bring right to the edge there. This one here, again, we're going to connect. We're going to round that in, and I think we're good there. Okay, so we have our basic outline for our flames. Now I'm just going to take a little bit more of a rounded oval shaped brush, rounded or oval shape, whatever works for you. I'm going to take a little bit more of that gel paint, and now we're going to fill in the rest of that free edge. So don't try to fill in that free edge with your micro detailer, or even sometimes your liner brush may be too small. When you're covering more space like this, you want to use a little bit of a larger brush so that you don't have to spend so much time and effort getting that paint where you need it. So just feathering through, coming in there, filling in that free edge. Now, if you feel like it, if you want to, you can come back through, you can move those lower areas up a little bit more. You can make one side higher than the other. So now it's not quite so perfectly even. I like with the flames, I like maybe one side a little bit lower down here, this side up a little bit higher. So you can create whatever look you want. But I'm going to just round this edge out just a little bit. And I think I'm liking how that's looking. I think I do want to round this edge out just a hair more and touch that up. Okay, I think I like how that looks. I'm going to get this into the light, and we're going to cure that. Oops, let me come back out here. So this one I am going to cure for, it actually depends. Now, with the nail that we've got, and with the gel paint that we're using, so the Mission Control is a hard gel. This one does not cure with a tacky surface. So this one, once it's cured, it does have a smooth, shiny finish to it. So if you want, you can just leave this, leave the design with a shiny finish, and we have that matte coat behind it. So if you want, you can have that different look. You can have that matte with the shiny, or you can do a coat of top coat over it. So it just depends on what you like. And you guys let me know, do you want to see a shiny finish, or do you want to see the two-tone, the matte with the shiny? Let me know in the chat. Do you want shiny or matte and shiny? Let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, join our community, join our channel here. I'm going to pop that nail back in there just a little bit more. Make sure to really make sure that's nice and cured. And that'll give you guys a chance to vote. But definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button if you guys haven't already. Join our community, join our fun here. And all right, looks like you guys are you're wanting to see the matte and the shiny, both two tones. Okay, so you guys, I'm gonna leave it as this. So let me come in. I know we normally do our top coat chant at this time, so if you want to do the top coat chant, you can do the top coat chant in the chat, those of you that know what I'm talking about. But otherwise, we will go ahead and just leave our nail as this. So we've got that kind of the matte in the background and the shiny on the free edge. And you guys, if you want to, you can always put a top coat over the whole thing. So you know what? You guys are doing the top coat chant. So I'm going to go ahead and top coat this. But those of you that wanted to see the matte and the shiny, you see the matte and the shiny. I don't have any tacky surface that I need to clean off. So I'm going to give you guys the best of both worlds. So we got our matte and our shiny, and then depending on whatever top coat you want to use, you can use your manicure top coat. I'm just going to go in with my ultimate finish top coat just to make sure, or not to make sure, but just my ultimate finish top coat, because for me it's a quick and an easy top coat, and this one does not have any of that tacky finish to cleanse off either. So if you like that matte, you can keep that matte. If you want a top coat with a shiny top coat, you can use that ultimate finish or your manicure top coat, or really whatever top coat you want. So I'm just going to freeze this into the light really quick, maybe just for 10 seconds, 15 seconds or so, and then I'll show you guys the final look. But do make sure if you are using the ultimate finish top coat, that does cure fully for 60 seconds. So make sure that you're giving that a full 60-second cure. And let's see, Melissa Hemming says, add glitter to the flames. You guys, you can definitely add glitter to your flames. If you like a little bit more sparkle, actually, oh, you guys, so many fun options. You can use any of our glitters. Let me show you really quickly here. You could also use the color that I had on the rest of my nails. This one is from our cream clay collection. This is called Tackle. This one is a little bit of a sparkly to it. So you could add this as accents over it. You can chrome over it. Yep, Lady Godiva says you can chrome over it. There's so many different options that you have with the designs. Make them your own. And you guys, if you do designs like this, post them on your social media and make sure to tag Young Nails. We always want to see what you guys are creating. So make sure to tag us, let us see. Here is our final look with our flames over our full cover tip on an extra wide nail. And you guys always make sure to finish your services with your rose oil. You can see my cuticles are extra dry right now from all of our cleansing. So always make sure you go through, finish with a coat of that cuticle oil, massage that into your cuticles, even underneath those nails. Make sure to keep everything hydrated, and you've got your fun flames for hopefully some warm weather coming up. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our community, and we will see you guys back next time. Thanks, everybody.